Hey Salukis, Jeff Gleam, Executive Director of the Alumni Association. We're coming to you live from Big Muddy Brewery. With us is our host, owner, and fellow alum, Chuck Stuhrenberg. Chuck, thank you for being a part of this.
Great.
We've got a fun-filled evening for our folks at home watching this, but why don't we just take a second and tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe a little bit about the brewery.
Okay, I'm a SIU alum, of course, graduated back in '87. Always had the idea of possibly starting a brewery in the back of my mind, and then finally about 2009 I went ahead and jumped right into it and started. We were the 7th production brewery in the state of Illinois.
Really?
Yeah.
7th?
Yeah,
Wow.
Since Prohibition, yeah. And now there's probably like 200 small breweries.
So I'm sure Big Muddy is well known amongst, I'm guessing, our biggest follower tonight is the 80s and 90s group, which I think you know a little bit about, right?
Yeah, it's a good time back then.
But for some of you, this may be your first exposure to Big Muddy. We hope to educate you a little bit about that. For those that I've already mentioned, this is old hat to some of you. But we're going to start off with a little brief video, kind of showcasing a little bit about the brewery. So, Caleb?
Yeah, I started Big Muddy Brewing back in 2009. When I started it, we were the only production brewery south of the Chicago area since Prohibition. We were the 7th production brewery in the state of Illinois. Now today we've got probably over 250 breweries, small breweries in the state of Illinois. Actually, I started home brewing back in the late 80s when I went to SIU. Back then, got a lot of the homebrew supply from Doug over at Old Town Liquors. He had a little homebrew shop in the basement. So I always thought in the back of my mind it'd be great to open a brewery someday, but I was just kind of, wishful thinking. And then what happened was about 2005, I really started getting actively homebrewing again. Ingredients got better. You were able to procure way better ingredients from across the world compared to what was available back in the 80s. So eventually some of my friends are like, yeah, you're brewing good beer. And I was like, oh, okay. And I just got the crazy idea to open a small brewery where we were just self-distributing, no public coming in or anything. We were just supplying all the wineries at first. And the wineries loved the product. They loved the fact that there was actually a local brewery, because a lot of people would come, tourists from all over the country, and not everybody wanted to drink wine all the time, especially the men that were with their wives. They'd like to know if there was any local brewery or local beer, and we were able to fill that niche for all the wineries on the wine trail, and they were our first customers. And then it just grew from there, and it just snowballed, and it's just been a challenge to keep up with the demand. But yeah, SIU has been supportive all the way around. I named our second beer was a Saluki Dunkel Dog. I just thought it was great. The German alumni call it the Dunkelhund. Kind of like in German, I guess dog is Hund, which I thought was really cool. And I've seen our people checking in with the Saluki Dunkel Dog shirt all over the world, under the Eiffel Tower, all over Europe, South America, everywhere. A lot of alumni, wear it and really are proud of SIU. And it kind of is like now there's kind of a beer that kind of goes with it. So that's what I find really rewarding. And all along the local community, Carbondale, Murphysboro, all the alumni have supported us so well. People come down here, at least once or twice a year from Chicago. That have been coming to the brewery here since I opened, the tap room back in 2012. A lot of alumni come down, and it just gives them an opportunity, whether it be coming down for homecoming or Halloween or other events, weddings in the area. They always seem to stop by the brewery. It's nice to see old friends stop by.
Well, great. So listen, we're going to have a little bit of fun here. If you take a look behind Chuck, you see all of these different types, and there may be even more that we can't even point out. And let's just go ahead and get it out there. Some of you are saying, have you already been sampling the product? And the answer is yes, we have, prior to coming on live here with you. But our goal for tonight is we're going to focus on 3 different types of beers that you make here. And we're going to talk a little bit about how did you come up with the idea, what's going into it, a little bit. I mean, we've done a segment on wine tasting. We've talked about the flavors and all that stuff. what I learned prior to going on camera is it's kind of the same process. I mean, there's smells, there's tastes, there's looks. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. For those of you who have questions, you can put questions into the mix here. Caleb will flag us down and tell us we got a question coming in. But Kathy and I'm sorry I didn't even introduce Kathy Maldacious, but everybody knows Kathy.
Sure.
Kathy is the director of our constituent group. So Kathy will join me in the tasting and conversation, and why don't we just get started? So we have chosen, which is our first?
Saluki Dunkel Dog, of course. Yeah.
So let's get this out here right now. Dunkel Dog or Dunkel Dog?
German is Dunkelhund. You know, if you say Hund in German, a dog in German is Hund. Yeah, so my German relatives and cousins will call it, or if somebody's here from Germany, oh, we want the Dunkelhund. You know, that's what they ask for.
So,
but it's Dunkel Dog, yeah.
Dunkel Dog, okay.
Yeah.
But how did you come up with that?
Just brainstormed for a while and, thought, what kind of beer could I make that's kind of maroon with our colors? And Dunkel in German, if you translate it, it's kind of like a dark red brown. So that would be the closest to maroon, to the maroon color. So, and then try to figure out something that sounded nice, Saluki, Dunkel. Oh, dog. Saluki's a dog. Saluki Dunkel Dog. So that's how I came up with it, or Dunkel Dog.
Well, I love the sweatshirt. I think that's great marketing, but I love the look, and you're dressed appropriately tonight. We were talking before we went on camera about the artistry of some of the things that we're looking at here in the packaging. Talk a little bit about, maybe let's start with this first one here.
We did the Saluki. That was one of my first commercial artists I worked with out of Chicago, Randy Mosier. He's done a lot of stuff for other breweries too, so he's pretty experienced. But that was just our basic, what we came up with. It wasn't anything elaborate or anything. And then when we did the Blueberry Blonde, we worked with a couple different people. One of them was Roger Ziegler from Bomber Crew Tattoos in Carbondale, and he did the sketch actually of the lady, the girl on the artwork there, and then we colorized it, and that's a really popular one too. These two here are our most popular beers. Is the Saluki Dunkel Dog and the Blueberry Blonde.
I didn't know that. So
yeah, so they're kind of our flagships.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So why don't we go ahead and get started with the Saluki Dunkel Dog.
Okay.
And I don't know how well this will show up on camera, but kind of like wine. I mean, we'll start with the coloring and the smell.
The coloring is, we call it a dark amber. It's not really a porter. The darker you go, it would become a porter. And then if you go darker yet, you get into the stouts. So it's really the color is what determines whether it's an ale or an amber or a stout or a porter.
So is there, I don't want to give away any secrets here, but is there something that I should be smelling that I'm not asking you about?
Well, we use a combination of like European hops and American hops for this. So that's kind of what you smell, but very lightly hopped, so it's not over the top or anything. So
I know the other two are going to be a little different, but is this what you would classify as maybe a typical beer, if you will, or ale, or?
Yeah, and it's approachable. It's like it's an amber that's approachable. It's not over the top as far as hoppiness goes or anything like that. It's pretty smooth. We use a Kolsch yeast, which is kind of a hybrid yeast between a lager and an ale. So lagers are usually smoother, like Budweiser. They take longer to brew and to ferment. Now ales will ferment quickly, and then you got more of your India Pale Ales or just Pale Ales. They're a little bit more hoppy usually, and the hop profile just shows with those type of beers.
So all of these are made in-house, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
How long? Let's just stay on this beer. How long does that take to make?
The Saluki Dunkel Dog, about 2 to 3 weeks.
2 to 3 weeks.
Now, if we don't have any lagers on tap right now, but those I do about they'll last about 2 to 3 months of fermentation. So I take a long time with those. Do it the more traditional way. Now, some big commercial breweries will do that in like 1 month, with everything. But I won't name any names.
No names mentioned, but you're a part of the making process, or?
Yeah, I brewed pretty much everything here.
Okay.
Now we do some of our bottling up at O'Fallon and at Stevens Point, Wisconsin, for the 12-ounce bottles, and that's just because of the sheer volume. They have $1 million bottling systems, and we do very large quantities up there. Here we do mostly the big 22-ounce bombers, and all of our draft beer is what we brew here.
Okay.
And some of our cans we brew here too at this location. But as we grew really rapidly, we were able to farm out some of our operations to larger facilities.
So,
Question.
one question from the audience?
Oh, okay, great.
We did, and Jeff, you might have to repeat this with a microphone, but Michael Cantwell says, what's your distribution area?
Michael Cantwell is asking, what is your distribution
Our
area?
distribution area, yes. So right now we are in all of the state of Illinois. We're in all of Missouri. We are in western Kentucky, southern Pennsylvania, and then the whole state of New Jersey right
So-
now.
Okay, so I'll just be stupid. How does that work?
It's complicated.
Okay.
Every state has their own laws for distribution and
Right.
beer and everything, and that was all developed after Prohibition. The United States government gave all the states individual rights to do their own laws for alcohol. So there's many different laws depending on where you're at, what state and what part of the country you are. And that goes for wine and everything else too.
True,
There's
right.
some states, I think in Pennsylvania, they'll have a beer store. You got to buy all the beer at a beer store, no other alcohol. And the beer stores are actually run by the state.
So
Which
somebody
is-
who
Alabama
moved,
too.
Yeah.
I moved here from Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
So I know,
So you
I
tell
know
me,
that
is
very
that
well.
right?
No, it is all right.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes, it
It's
is. So this
it's
was
so unusual that it's
different for
every
me
state-
when we moved here.
Yeah.
So life became much easier to get something like this.
Yeah, you could go to the grocery store and get
Exactly.
beer.
I
Exactly.
believe in Alabama, all of the liquor stores are run by the state.
Oh, okay.
They're not-
there too.
they're
Okay.
not- yeah.
So I am curious if we can. We've got some time to take a little deeper dive on your first beer. This is the Dunkel Dog.
Actually, our first one was the Kincaid Wheat, but this was our second beer, the Dunkel Dog.
So, did you learn something from your first one to get you to this one? Because you already indicated our second beer is going to be. These are your two most popular beers. Did you learn something from the first one to this one that has made it so popular?
I was striving for something that was more approachable as far as craft beer goes. Back then, there were craft breweries that were putting out super hop, stuff that was just over the top. Most people wouldn't like, so I wanted to do something a little bit different. And that was the early days of the big craft beer movement in 2009. We were actually the fourth member of the St. Louis Brewers Guild because there just weren't, there were 3 or 4 or 5 breweries, production breweries in the area here. And now, we've got 50 members in the St. Louis Brewers Guild and probably way over 200 in the Illinois Guild. But yeah, I just wanted to be very, very approachable and just a good tasting beer that's good and, on a hot day or whenever somebody may. And if you're an SIU alum, you gotta love it.
I think you succeeded on that. So yeah, we're laughing about the Saluki part, but I mean, did you get a lot of comments about that when the beer came out with the name?
Oh,
and so
yeah,
forth?
yeah. Everybody comes here and they're like, "Oh, that was my idea. I wanted to make a Saluki beer." Hey, well, I guess I was the first one that did it. I guess I don't know.
Well,
But yeah, back in college, we were all homebrewing and stuff, and it was fun. That was the early days of homebrewing too. The ingredients weren't as well that you could procure back then, so the beer really wasn't as good when you had your final product.
So you're laughing about the home brewing aspect of this, but is that really where this got its start? I mean, is that something,
Oh,
a
yeah.
passion, a love?
Yeah, and that's why there's so many great, craft breweries now. Just so many homebrewers just stepped up the game, and it's just grown and grown year after year, and expanded everybody's palates nationwide. It's unbelievable.
So how would you have liked to have had a fermentation degree from SIU?
That would have been like a dream back
Yeah.
then, I guess. They'd probably laugh at you if you were saying, "I want to," but now they got it, so
So
they got it going.
again, I'm really good at asking the silly questions, the stupid questions. So we're staying on this beer for a few more minutes. But every time you make it, I mean, is it by grandma's recipe, or I mean, is it the same exact thing, or does every batch, if you will, is it just slightly different, or how does that work?
With the small breweries, that's the nice thing about them, because there's always these little nuances, whether the water was a little bit different that day from the local water supply, or the temperature, or the yeast temperature. You reuse the yeast, so maybe it was the first run or the second time you cropped it or third time, and you might get a little bit of the wild yeast kicking in. That's, particular to the ambience of wherever you're at, whatever part of the country you're at. There's all these little nuances, so that's why people really like to find craft beer, and they'll be like, oh, this one is a little bit different, or this is, I'm tasting this time, or compared to the big commercial breweries that are exactly the same every time, and they spend billions of dollars making sure it's exactly the same every time. But that's what I look at, when I go to different breweries, and I'm like, well, give me this one. I haven't had it in a year or two, and it's like, oh, what did you do? What did you change stuff then? So yeah, it's always kind of like an adventure.
One other question: warm versus cold in regards to temperature.
For craft beer, a little bit warmer than 38 degrees. Up to 50 degrees. Now the bigger beers, like our Imperial Winter Ale, that you can serve it like at a wine temperature, maybe 60 degrees or 58. It's like a winter warmer, so you actually get more flavors out of it, especially if it's been aged in a barrel. You'll get all kinds of different flavors and terpenes from the aromas and stuff like that.
Okay. So one last question, we'll move on. As you're brewing this, do you sample it to make sure you're getting the right things out of it?
As it's fermenting, you have to sample it, and make sure everything's going. Yeah, you don't want to dump a whole batch, but in the early days, I had to dump a few batches. That's the way you live and learn, by making mistakes. There's no question about it.
So
it's just expensive.
So we started with the top selling one of the top selling.
Beers. I'd say these are equal. Yeah.
So we're going to move on to what I'm classifying as more of a traditional, to something that has a little different flavor.
The blueberry blonde.
Blueberry, yeah. So let's try that.
Let me rinse the glasses here.
So while you're doing that, what beers would you age in a barrel, and which ones would you age a different?
Traditionally, you would age the bigger beers, and when I say bigger, I mean the higher alcohol type beers or the darker beers traditionally. But now people are aging everything, and they're experimenting with all different types of barrels too, not just bourbon barrels, but oak barrels, wine barrels. So you're getting a lot of different things to try out there.
Interesting.
Especially now the sours. The sour beers are just unbelievable how many different. That's kind of like where wine meets beer. So you've got so many different types of sours and yeast strains and wild ambient yeast. People are just doing open fermentation. This part of the country, since you have the Shawnee Forest, you're going to get much different wild yeast than out in California, where there's not much, a whole different vegetative type area.
Okay, so we are now moving on to beer number 2, Blueberry Blonde.
Yes.
Now, I don't know, again, how well this will resonate on camera, but it's already a much lighter color. So let's start there before we start talking about taste and smell.
Okay.
So it's lighter because
it's an ale. It's a blueberry blonde. It's a blonde ale, so that's a light colored ale is the way it's described. And I try to do just a hint of blueberry, so it's not over the top. So it's more of a refreshing type of a beer, and it's only about, I think, 5.2% alcohol, so it's pretty light on the alcohol side. So it's real refreshing in the summertime, and it's not over the top with blueberry flavor. I don't care for over the top crazy fruit beers and stuff like that. So I just try to do a very light balance and more of the aroma and the terpenes you can smell from the blueberries. So that kind of hits you, and then it's just very refreshing.
So for the folks at home, we got a sneak peek at this earlier. You do have a blueberry aroma smell.
Definitely.
It is light, not overpowering, but it hits me there. I mean, this is good.
Yeah,
Very
thanks.
good.
Thanks.
We were talking off camera about the blueberries. They're
Oh, the blueberries that we procure for this one.
Yeah.
So we do use some of the blueberries that are from Michigan, and a lot of those grow between Michigan and over the border in Canada. They're wild blueberries. People even pull over on the highway, and on the Canadian side, I've heard stories where they pull over on the highway and you can just pick all the blueberries right next to the highway. But they're smaller blueberry because they're wild, but they really have a unique flavor, and the tannins are a little bit different than the production ones that are grown. The really big ones that you might buy at the supermarket.
So because I'm just, again, the ingredients of this are a little bit different than the first one. Is there a longer process for this one versus the other one, or vice versa?
Yeah, there's additional processes that you have to do for flavoring and stuff, but
and we'll
not much difference.
So, but we'll talk about that with the last one. But give us an example of processes because of what you're using. What's a little bit
you
different?
still brew the beer the same, the base beer, but then a lot of the flavoring is added in the fermentation at that level into the fermenters. So at the tail end, after it's while it's fermenting, so it might even react with the yeast as that's doing its thing, and kind of like dry hopping when you add the hops to the fermentation.
Now, I asked you the question about the Dunkeldog. Maybe every batch is a little bit different based on where you're making the water and everything. When you're adding something like this, the blueberry, could that really vary by batch to batch because of that, or is it?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily,
No,
okay.
yeah, we try to keep that consistent. So.
Okay. But this is real refreshing, Caleb. I don't know if anybody out there is anything
Any
specific.
more questions?
Only one more. Henry Gomez says he's enjoying a Dunkeldog in Atlanta, so you've got someone from
Awesome.
who's there.
He must have did a road trip, or somebody sent him some.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah. So well, Henry, thank you for drinking in Atlanta. We appreciate that. But what? Anything else that you want people to know about this particular one?
It's all natural, and it's light, and it's refreshing. If you've never tried it, but most people have tried it probably.
So I'm going to come back because
That are watching.
obviously these two, the packaging has caught my eye because of the Saluki and the lady on here. You've got multiple selections here. Do you lay a bed at night and just think about what's going to be on the next one, or how do you determine that?
I'm usually too tired to working 12-hour days at the brewery.
Yeah.
Keeps me in shape though, I guess. I don't know, I'm on my feet all the time. But yeah, it's especially the last few years has been a challenge to come out with. A lot of breweries are going out of business now too because of the last 2 years they've been hit so hard. So it's like, do you invest tens of thousands of dollars and try to in packaging and artwork to a new beer, or when there's so many on the shelves already, or but we always I've been pushing ourselves, myself, to come up with some new stuff. So we're coming up with our new one. It will be released in about a month. Is the strawberry blonde, and that we're going to be canning that, and then we'll also be canning our corn Holio, which is 51% corn, and I call that a kind of a new style unique to our area. I'm calling it a mid-coast India Pale Cream Ale. So cream ales are usually traditionally with 30% corn. So we're in corn country here. So,
Right.
And everything's East Coast and West Coast. Mississippi's the mid-coast. So that's the way I came up with that. So we're the mid-coast style, So it's kind of like an IPA, India Pale Ale, but it's with cream ale. So there's a little unique sugar there in the background.
Oh, okay.
Complementing the hoppiness of
Right.
kind of like a sweet and sour, or kind of not sweet and sour, but like a real hoppy. But then there's some unique sweetness at the back end. We don't have that on tap right now, but we will in a week or two if you want to come back and try it.
So I'm looking at some of the names. I mean, I'm guessing that a lot of the names go along with maybe an ingredient or a flavor or something, like strawberry blonde, blueberry blonde. There's some of the other things that we see back here. But is there anything that's just so far off the wall that I can't see, or that That's,
Well, we got our last one we're going to try here, the PBC.
that one's off the wall.
I do have another question.
Peanut butter cup. Go ahead.
Have you ever tried brewing, and he's called it a Roush beer or a smoked beer?
So the question is, have you ever tried brewing a Roush or smoke beer?
Yeah, so actually our 17th Street smoked amber is a borderline Roush beer, but we use different type of smoke. We use cherry, where Roush, I believe they use beechwood that they actually smoke it with, but we use cherry wood to smoke it with. It's smoked malt. So we did that one exclusively for 17th Street barbecue. I did that with Mike Mills back, gosh, it must have been 2014, right when I was first opening. He wanted a beer exclusive to serve at all his establishments, the 17th Street and Marion, and at that
So you
time it
had a
was
little
also in
Saluki
Vegas.
connection going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that's a really unique beer. It's kind of an amber, but it's also got that hint of smokiness from cherry wood, and it's got a little bit of apple in there too, like because he wanted the apple flavor, because that's what he uses, apple, for smoking most of his barbecue, and at 17th Street that's what they use now. So, but yeah, you can get that on tap anytime at the Marion 17th Street or the one here in Carbondale if people are passing through, or occasionally we'll have it on tap here. We just don't have it on tap right now.
So I'm going to go down a different path here with
Okay.
you, because we were talking about the winter ale before we went on camera, and we were talking a little bit about after dinner, before dinner. I was asking you about pairings or stuff like that. Beers go better with certain types of food?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Is there? Let's pick on the Dunkel Dog. Is that? I mean, that's more of a tradition.
Dunkel Dog would go good with just about anything. Yeah,
So the blueberry blonde. Let's talk about that.
So usually, as a rule of thumb, for like the more spicy beers, go with like more spicy foods. So IPAs, would be kind of spicy because of the hops. But the Imperial Winter Ale, that's a stronger version of our regular Imperial Ale. So that's why I was saying it's more of a winter warmer, or maybe after dinner, comparable to after dinner drink, because it's like almost 30 proof. It's about 14% alcohol. So it's more of a sipping beer. And that's something that you warm up to maybe a wine temperature, 58, 60 degrees, before you drink it, to really get most of the
we got another
enjoyment out of it.
Got another question?
One new question. Which beer has the highest ABV?
Which beer has the highest ABV?
Out of these three, or out of anything we've ever brewed?
Out of everything.
Yeah, let's go with
Everything we've ever brewed. We'll be brewing it again for the next Eclipse, is our Dark Noon.
Good.
The last
clever.
Eclipse happened around noon, so that's what we named it after. But we'll get that going here, because the next Eclipse will be over us again. X marks the spot, right over at Carbondale and Murphysboro, where both Eclipse, full Eclipse paths crossed. But that one was about over 15-16%. We barrel aged that for about a year or two too.
Oh,
so
wow.
we got to get going on that, because we're only about 2 years away from that now.
How long will you serve it for? I mean, what's your
Till it runs out.
Till it
Usually,
runs out.
yeah, we ran out of it.
Fair enough.
On the day of the Eclipse, there were people here from all over the world. So
Okay.
yeah, they were all
Just
grabbing
quick.
that. Yeah. But yeah, right now the biggest beer that we have on tap is the Imperial Winter Ale. So that's about, like I said, 14%. But out of these, the highest ABV, I believe these are both the same. The peanut butter cup's probably 6%. I think these are like 5.
Just 5.5. It says.
Yeah, about 5.5 or something. So I wasn't sure if he was asking about these particular ones, or they were asking about every beer I've ever brewed, or
And for those who don't know, maybe just explain what ABV stands for.
the alcohol by volume, ABV.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so I guess we'll move on to our last one, which is, of the three, to me, was the most unique. Anxious to hear this story, if there is a story behind it. But let's talk about Peanut Butter Cup Stout.
Before you do, I want to say something. So, favorite candy is a peanut butter cup, and I'm fairly certain that he thinks that I asked you to use this beer, and we did not talk about that at all.
No.
that you threw this out, and I went,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, well, it's my favorite candy too. So
there you go.
So I
I
was
know I
like,
liked you for some reason, Chuck.
I was just like, how in the world do I incorporate that into beer? So yeah, we tried, and people love it. So
Well, let's give it a shot.
These glasses out again.
I hope everybody's getting something out of this. I know you're not getting the taste, but hopefully we're giving you a good example of, or a good idea of what perhaps maybe it tastes like.
When you have an idea, how long does it take you to get it from your idea in your head to it's in a bottle or it's on tap?
Good question.
That really depends too. A lot of other things, like right now. For instance, we're trying to come up with the strawberry blonde in cans and the cornholio, and there's delays with everything. Cans, bottling, packaging.
Took all those delays out. Just, I mean, it just everything went smooth as silk. Just
So, to being packaged like this, or just,
No,
what I can do
packaged.
is real quick. I can do it here, 3 weeks,
Okay.
and put it on tap. But packaging, you have to have the TTB approve the label. You have to get the labels approved in all the states that you're going to be distributing.
Oh, wow.
You gotta order all the packaging. You have to order new plates for the packaging, which is like more like the hardware for the printing presses, and that's what there's delays on right now. Everything's just with, it's just unbelievable, the delays on everything for different parts, and then so but
And
yeah, for this normally maybe a couple months, but right now you got to plan 6 months out or maybe longer. Who knows?
And these are things you learned over time before you, as you got into this, you didn't know it was going to be maybe this complicated.
Yeah, I mean, you just worked with it,
Right.
and do the best you can, and and find different suppliers if you can, or that will
Right.
get the stuff better or faster. But everybody's about the same right now, so it's just
So our
Kind of
last
challenge.
beer is the peanut butter cup stout. Now I don't know if you were kidding, if peanut butter cup is one of your favorite candies,
Yeah,
or
it is.
Okay, so you were telling the truth. Now you might notice he filled this one up the highest of all of them. Maybe it's a little different color. So again, let's start with the coloring.
okay. Yeah, we call it a stout. It's in between, probably. It's pretty light for a stout actually, but it's in between the porter and a stout. For color, for the love bond, that's what they call the color, how dark or how light a beer is. But that's what we're shooting for.
So when I found out the three that we were going to taste, and I saw the last one, I did think that you picked this out for me, but seeing as how you did not, I thought perhaps maybe it's just a name, and I really wasn't putting the peanut butter together with the beer.
The PBC.
Yeah, I knew what it stood for. I just
Yeah.
was like, there's no way.
Yeah.
And before we got on camera, you gave me a little sneak peek, and I took a smell, and I was actually really surprised at how much it really does. You do get that peanut butter cup smell.
Yeah.
So-
And a little bit of chocolate in there too.
So
chocolate for sure.
And there's other peanut butter beers out there, that I had actually before this, but I just wasn't impressed, or that was like over the top with flavoring or artificial flavoring. But we try to do as much natural flavoring as possible.
okay,
How do you flavor
yeah.
a beer with peanut butter naturally?
Okay, so there's a couple different ways you can do with the actual peanut butter powder. I can't remember the name of it. It's like a powder. It's basically just peanuts, I think, and ground up. So you can do it like that, or you can work with extract companies and make sure that's natural. They extract the natural smells or terpenes from the peanuts to get that, or from the chocolate, and it's a natural extract versus artificial extract. You can get artificial extracts too, but I try to always make sure we're natural. So that's why we're allowed to say that things are natural. TTB regulates that, and you have to submit all the formulas to them ahead of time to make sure, because they might say, oh, if it's got over 2 or 3% alcohol in the extract, then it's no longer natural, or they need to know exactly how much more alcohol it's going to affect the beer, because they want to make sure to keep the categories, correct for alcohol or whiskey or bourbon or beer. Is it beer or is it that, or is it a cocktail in a bottle or something?
Right.
So that's an important process that's important to keep the public knowledge on what they're actually buying.
So I can imagine the first two, how the process of making this, and maybe it may be a little bit hit or miss with what your overall end game was, but with this last one, to me, seems to be the most fun one to make because it's peanut butter. I mean, that's the key. I won't say the key ingredient, but it's obviously the name of it. But I mean, getting that balance just right to where it's not so sweet or it's not so it's just peanut butter. How do you get to what we're tasting
Just
right now? 'Cause
experiment.
it's almost, I would say it's perfect.
Yeah,
The
you got to
perfect-
do it, home brewing, 5-gallon batches, and maybe that one's too high, and then you extrapolate out to, 500 gallons or 5,000 gallons. But things change when you get to that large production type of system. They might extract certain flavors more than other ones on your small system. So, but usually there's a lot of computer software out there that predicts stuff pretty accurately.
Computer software.
Yeah.
Wow. Who would
I
have
don't
thunk?
know.
Yeah. I mean, that's been out since the home brewers. Yeah.
Oh my
so
gosh.
that was always a challenge. That made things a lot easier compared to probably 50 years ago or 100 years ago when they were first starting out with Budweiser or something, or that you'd really have to do a lot of calculations or maybe before you come up with something new.
But okay, I don't know if anyone else at home is wondering, but what in the world made you think of this peanut butter cup stout?
Well, like I said, I wasn't the first one.
No, I know,
I
but-
tried some other ones. I'm like, oh God, this is like,
Yeah, but-
I can't drink this. It was like, it's gotta be better because I like peanut butter.
Okay.
That's why people were buying it to try it. And I'm like, okay, let me try my hand at it. But people are loving it. It's one of our highest rated beers.
Good.
How long has this been out?
About several years. This is my best guesstimate. It was before COVID, so.
So we have a question.
Got a couple here, and I'll take
Okay.
them in a couple order. We got one requested. Have you ever tried anything with a Girl Scout cookie flavor?
So the question is, have you ever tried anything
we
with a
ju-
Girl
we just
Scout
had,
cookie?
We just had our Girl Scout pairing 2 weeks ago here.
Did you?
We had well, I'll tell you which ones they were.
That's a good question, by the
Here
way.
a second.
Good question.
Okay. Yes. If they have Girl Scout cookies on hand right now, this is what we paired them with.
Well, not necessarily pairing. I mean, infusing a flavor. Of
Oh.
Girl Scout cookie.
Like mint chocolate?
Well, that's an interesting thing. Don't
No, but the pairings was the Thin Mints was with our Big Muddy Winter Ale. The Shortbread was with the Big Muddy Blueberry Blonde.
Oh, I can see
Yeah, I
that.
can see that one.
The Peanut Butter Cookie was with our Peanut Butter Cup Stout.
There you go.
And
My favorite.
the Samoas was with our Vanilla Stout. So that was the
That
pairing
one.
that we did here. But yeah, it was a big hit. We sold out of all the
Oh, I bet you did.
cookies. So
You sold out of cookies.
yeah, so the Girl Scouts were happy.
Yeah.
The
But
Girl Scouts left the brewery.
but yeah,
out.
maybe if I had more time, I could try just grinding them, up and putting them in a beer or mimic those same flavors.
Caleb, you had one more?
Yeah, the next one would is, do you do any sort of collaborative work with other breweries in terms of, do you contract out brews for other places, or what kind of work do you do with some of the other breweries?
Yeah,
So
we've
the
done a couple
collabor-
collaborations.
Yeah,
Yeah. I've always pushed. It's always about having enough time for other brewers to collaborate. So a lot of times I travel to their place and we'll brew.
Okay.
One of the first ones was with Scratch Brewery, which is a local brewery.
Right.
We did one with them. Aaron, who started Scratch, used to work for me, so that's always fun. It's always fun to do collaborations, but nobody seems to have time. It's just so crazy. We did a collaboration with Second Shift up in St. Louis last year, which was a big hit. We sold out. It was a kettle sour, a peach kettle sour, but it was really smooth and light, only 4%, great in the summertime. We used about 600 or 800 pounds of peaches in the fermenter. It was a big mess.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But yeah, it was really good. I'm trying to think of all. We've done several collaborations over the years. Yeah.
Good question. Okay, so we've tasted all three. All three very different. All three very good, by the way. And anything as we kind of work our way towards a close here, anything you want people to know about what you do, where you're at, when you're open, things like that?
Yeah, our tap room here is open on the weekends. We open Friday at 4 p.m. To the public, and then we're open on Saturday and Sunday at noon. And Friday and Saturday we're open till 10 p.m. Sunday we're open till 7. So if you're ever coming back into town for vacation or mini vacation or whatever, stop by, and we'll hopefully treat you right.
I think you will. So with that, I want to thank everybody for watching. I hope you learned something. I know I did. Kathy?
I did.
I did, and I keep eyeing that PBC, so that was pretty good. But hope everyone's doing well. And again, I like I said, I hope you enjoyed this. We'll be back with you again for something else, so we'll keep you guessing. But until then, as always, go Dogs!